Whether you realize it or not, you are not alone in this fight. The time has come. Truth is trembling. The heavens are moving, and unseen hands are pushing you forward. They tried to bring you down. They tried to dishonor your name. They thought they could leave you alone. But they have forgotten that you are no ordinary man. You are the chosen one. The forces that walk with you are not only of this world. There is a force that lifts you up when you fall, that keeps you up even in the midst of darkness. Today, all their games are falling apart. Their masks are falling. They tremble because now they realize what they have lost. Your rise means their downfall. No matter how much they run, no matter how much they deny it, justice will be served. The winner of this war was clear from the beginning. Write 77 in the comments now. While they are waiting for your fall, you are writing your victory. There are moments when everything changes, when silence is no longer an option, and the weight of truth demands to be set free. You've carried this knowledge for so long, watching, waiting, knowing the day would come when the illusions would collapse under their own weight. It wasn't restraint out of fear. It was patience, the kind that comes from knowing that truth, when spoken at the right time, has the power to undo even the most carefully constructed deceptions. They moved recklessly, thinking the story would remain in their hands forever. But now, the moment has arrived, and when the real version is spoken, there is no turning back. Betrayal doesn't come with a warning, nor does it come from the hands of strangers. It's the ones who knew your heart, the ones you trusted beyond reason, who carved the deepest wounds. They took your kindness, your faith in them, and twisted it into something sharp, using your own history as a blade. While you sat in the storm of their making, questioning your worth, your instincts, your ability to ever trust again, they walked free, rewriting the narrative in their favor. They whispered in the ears of anyone who would listen, painting themselves as misunderstood souls, layering excuses over their betrayal like a mask. They gambled on one thing, that you would remain silent, that you would be too weary, too disillusioned, too broken to correct their fiction. But what they feared most was never your rage, it was your clarity, because the moment you stepped forward and revealed what they so desperately wanted buried, their facade would crumble in an instant. So they didn't seek redemption, nor did they hope for forgiveness. No, what they prayed for was your obedience, for your silence to stretch long enough that their falsehoods became the accepted truth. For so long, you took the dignified path, believing that distance was the highest form of power, and perhaps, for a while, it was. But there is a difference between choosing peace and being shackled by someone else's deception. There is a line between wisdom and being manipulated into quiet submission. The road of restraint was never meant to be a cage, yet they counted on it to be just that. The question is, who benefits from your silence? What happens when the assumption of your weakness becomes their shield? When your refusal to engage becomes the very thing that allows them to thrive in dishonesty? That ends now. This isn't about vengeance. It isn't about proving anything to them. It's about reclaiming what was stolen. Your truth, your voice, your ability to stand unburdened by their lies. They called upon false righteousness, cloaking their deception in borrowed virtue, hoping it would be enough to keep you bound. They didn't seek divine justice, only protection from exposure. But the same forces they invoked have always been listening, not just to them, but to you. Every silent plea, every unseen wound, every unspoken moment of resilience was witnessed. They may have whispered in the dark, But light never remains absent for long. And when illumination arrives, deception has nowhere left to hide. They drape themselves in borrowed grace, not as a reflection of their own transformation, but as armor against the reckoning they knew was coming. But righteousness is no shield against truth. No amount of pleading, of posturing, of false humility can rewrite what is real. They never anticipated that the very silence they depended on would turn into the force that undoes them. Their words will fail them. Their prayers will not keep the inevitable at bay. And when the dust settles, you will remain stronger, lighter, untethered. Even at your lowest, you were never beneath them. Even when you questioned yourself, you were always steps ahead. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom. For you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. They wanted what was never meant for them. They envied what they could not sustain. They tried to dismantle what they never had the strength to build. And here's the undeniable truth. Even when they thought you were defeated, you were simply in the process of becoming something greater. Not just a return to what was, but an elevation into something new, a complete rebirth. The limitations they projected onto you no longer hold weight. The expectations they sought to impose have shattered, and now you rise, not as a version of what they tried to suppress, but as something far beyond their reach. Let them watch, let them unravel, let them sit in the chaos of their own making. You owe them nothing, not your silence, not your compliance, not even your acknowledgement. The only thing left to do is move forward, free, unshaken, and unstoppable. They spent endless nights strategizing, whispering, hoping to dismantle everything you built. Their efforts weren't subtle, no, they were relentless, clawing at your essence, trying to dim the light that made you untouchable. They mimicked, manipulated, and maneuvered, believing that if they threw enough stones, they'd finally watch you crumble. But instead of breaking, you evolved. Instead of shrinking, you expanded. And now, the cracks are appearing. But not in your world, in theirs. The ones who once stood tall on the illusion of their own importance are watching everything slip through their fingers. The ones who swore they were untouchable are now drowning in the weight of their own deception. And the worst part? They know they did it to themselves. Time is revealing every hidden hand, every move made in the dark, every word spoken with venom. They had convinced themselves they were architects of your downfall, puppeteers in control of your fate. But what they failed to realize was that you were never playing their game to begin with. You watched, you observed, you let them write their own endings, and now, as reality settles in, they are left grasping at a kingdom of smoke, their illusions dissipating into the very air they poisoned. Their fabricated power structure is collapsing, their bravado evaporating under the weight of truth. What they never anticipated was that your silence wasn't submission, it was a countdown. Their world is unraveling, thread by thread, and they don't even know where to place the blame. Their relationships are fracturing, their resources are depleting, their carefully crafted reputations are becoming unrecognizable. They call it misfortune, a streak of bad luck, an inexplicable shift in the universe. never daring to admit that the energy they scattered is returning like a tide too strong to escape. They are running, but there is no destination that will offer refuge from the consequences they set in motion. The fear in their eyes grows with every moment of clarity, with every whispered realization that what they once controlled is slipping beyond their reach. Like a tree planted by the rivers of divine favor, unshaken by the storms, you have stood firm while they built their houses on shifting sands. The winds of truth have come, and now those unstable foundations are crumbling beneath them. They tried to mold reality to fit their deception, sculpting narratives like clay in their hands, believing they could shape the world to their advantage. But clay hardens, and when the pressure of truth comes, it cracks. What they built in the shadows cannot withstand the weight of what has been revealed. They will rewrite, redirect, attempt to cast shadows where none exist, but it will not be enough. The weight of their own choices will press against them, unrelenting. There is no battle for you to fight, no revenge for you to seek. The forces they tried to manipulate are now beyond their command. The very foundations they stood on are shifting beneath them, leaving them scrambling for footing that no longer exists. The ones who once dictated the narrative now find themselves silenced by the very truths they tried to bury. They spoke boldly when they thought they were untouchable, walking with an air of certainty, believing they had outmaneuvered justice itself. But no one outruns the tide forever. You see, you don't have to chase retribution, because what they put into the world is circling back all on its own. They sat at tables where lies were served as the main course, feasting on the belief that their actions had no consequence. But the meal is finished now, and the bill has arrived. They never considered that truth moves like a living thing. It breathes, it expands, it gathers strength with every soul that recognizes it, and now that force is moving through their world, tearing through the facades they built, sweeping away every illusion. Their words used to hold weight, their manipulations used to land effortlessly, but something has shifted. People are seeing through them. The illusion is wearing thin, and they know it. That's why the panic has set in. That's why the hands that once moved so confidently are now trembling behind closed doors. They spent so much time believing they were the architects of destiny, placing themselves above consequence, weaving deception with such precision that they mistook their own performance for truth. But when the final act comes, the curtain must close, and when the lights go up, there is nowhere left to hide. They wanted control. They wanted to dictate the way the story ended. But what they never realized is that you were never reading from their script. And here's the thing. They thought you were walking alone. They assumed you were isolated, outnumbered, standing on fragile ground. But they failed to see the army around you. They failed to recognize the divine alignment at work. They mistook your quiet strength for solitude, not realizing that those who walk in truth are never walking alone. Heaven itself takes notice. The unseen is always working, orchestrating, shifting things into place. The protection around you was never just physical. It was something greater, something deeper, something untouchable by their schemes. And now, they stand on the other side of the equation, watching as everything they touched begins to turn against them. The very alliances they built are unraveling. The very support systems they depended on are vanishing. Because here's what they never understood. Nothing built on deception lasts. They thought they could force their version of reality onto the world. But when the foundations are made of dust, no amount of effort will keep the structure from collapsing. You, on the other hand, have been planted deep, rooted in something real, something unshakable. And now, while they scramble to hold together the pieces, you rise, not in anger, not in retaliation, but in the fullness of who you were always meant to be. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies them, because they see it now. The power they tried to strip from you was never theirs to take. The future they tried to block was never in their hands to control. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Like a storm gathering on the horizon, they see the skies shifting, the winds changing, but they pretend the air isn't thick with what's coming. They walk as if the ground beneath them isn't trembling, as if the very foundations they built their illusions on aren't starting to crack. But deep down, they know. The atmosphere is different now. The season has shifted. The grace that once covered them is lifting, and they can feel the weight of what's approaching. And now, they are scrambling, looking for places to run, for people to manipulate, for doors to open where there are none. The alliances they depended on are dissolving, not because you said a word, but because truth has a way of revealing itself. Those who once stood beside them are stepping back, not out of loyalty to you, but because deception has an expiration date. They see it now. They feel it now, and they don't want to be anywhere near the fallout when it finally comes crashing down. They will deny it. They will act as if nothing is changing, as if their world isn't unraveling thread by thread. But the evidence is everywhere. The silence that once worked in their favor now feels suffocating. The eyes that once looked at them with admiration now hold something different. Doubt, suspicion, awareness. They are being seen in a way they never expected, and it terrifies them. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything. This is about standing in the truth that was always yours. The tables have turned, not because you forced them, but because divine justice is never late. And now, as the dust settles, one thing remains clear. You are never losing. You are simply being positioned for something greater. And no matter how desperately they try to resist it, they cannot stop what has already been set in motion. This is the cycle of restoration, the inevitable balancing of the scales. Watch it unfold. Witness the realignment of everything they thought they could control. The truth does not tiptoe. It does not ask permission. It does not soften its edges to accommodate those who feared its arrival. It sweeps through, tearing down every falsehood, every illusion, every manufactured reality. They spent their time weaving a tale, believing they alone held the pen. But the story was never truly theirs to tell. And now, as their voices falter and their illusions fade, there is nothing left for them to cling to but the truth they so desperately tried to suppress. Their panic is palpable. They scramble, search for ways to hold together what is already crumbling. They will deny, distort, weave new deceptions in a last-ditch effort to regain control. But the unraveling has begun. The weight of their choices is pressing down, and there is no escape. They thought their actions would remain unseen, that the stories they crafted would stand unchallenged. But now they stand at the mercy of their own making. The discomfort in the air is not coincidence. It is the consequence they never thought would come. And yet this isn't about them. This isn't about watching their empire collapse. This is about the greater shift, the power of truth rising to the surface. This is about every unheard voice finally breaking through. Because when one person refuses to be silenced, they ignite a movement. And that movement doesn't wait, doesn't pause, doesn't seek approval. It spreads like wildfire, consuming every falsehood, bringing light where there was only deception. This isn't just revelation, it's revolution. And there is no turning back. There are those who move through the world differently, those whose presence is felt even in silence. The observers, the ones who stand at the edge of the known, never following the crowd, never bound by convention. They are not here for applause, not here to fit in. While others walk well-trodden roads, they carve through the wilderness, unafraid of the unknown. They battle forces unseen, illuminate spaces long left in darkness, and ask questions most are too afraid to consider. Their path is not for the faint-hearted, but for those who understand. No explanation is needed. The gathering of kindred souls continues, bound not by obligation, but by destiny. The numbers grow, yet it is not about how many, but who. Some will seek, some will find, but no one is ever truly lost. The doors remain open for those who recognize the calling. Betrayal is not a single act. It is a slow unraveling, a web spun with careful intent. It reaches into places once thought safe, distorting every connection it touches. Sometimes the wound is inflicted by those who share your history, those who once stood in your corner but chose silence when it mattered most. They knew, or at least they sensed. But rather than stand for what was right, they chose comfort, choosing to look away rather than disrupt the fragile peace. And when the truth emerges, they will call you vindictive, too sensitive, unwilling to let go, because your honesty exposes what they were too afraid to confront. Then there are the ones who stood beside you, not out of loyalty, but for the illusion of proximity. They envied without admitting it, watched without supporting, hoping for your misstep. They smiled in your presence, but delighted in your struggles, mistaking your patience for ignorance. They believed they were unseen, that their whispers wouldn't echo back to you. But every unspoken word, every concealed intention, made its way to you in time. And now they watch in disbelief as the story unfolds in ways they never anticipated. The same truth they tried to suppress has returned with force, and suddenly they are scrambling to rewrite their roles. They assumed you would always hesitate, that you would never gather the strength to see them clearly. But clarity was never absent. It was simply waiting for the right moment. They will insist you have become someone else, that the transformation was sudden. But the reality is far simpler. You have merely stepped into the truth that was always there. No more softening your words to preserve their comfort. No more dimming your presence to accommodate their fragility. The weight of deception is no longer yours to carry. If they wanted a different memory, they should have chosen a different path. Some betrayals come as a test, others as a warning, and deep down, you always knew. The discomfort wasn't paranoia, it was recognition. The unease wasn't doubt, it was wisdom. But you silenced it, convinced yourself that people could change, that what you sensed was simply misinterpretation. You extended grace where none was earned, ignored signs that screamed for your attention. But the moment arrived, as it always does, when the pattern became undeniable, when the scattered pieces aligned into a picture so clear it could no longer be ignored. And now, hesitation is gone. You no longer need confirmation, no longer wait for proof. You trust what you feel because it has never led you astray. They believed they had outmaneuvered you, that their manipulation was flawless. But what they miscalculated was your patience. You were never blind. You were simply watching, allowing time to reveal what words could not. They assumed they were ahead, that their game was too intricate for you to untangle. But the truth was always a step ahead of them, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. Now, as the facade crumbles, they scramble for excuses, trying to hold together what is already lost. But time is no longer on their side. The story has already been rewritten, not by their hands, but by reality itself. This was never about exposing them. It was about elevating you. The universe was not punishing you, but preparing you. Every revelation was placed with purpose. Every loss a step toward alignment. You were never meant to remain where they left you. You were meant to rise beyond, untouchable, unaffected. The games they played, beneath you. The chaos they thrived in, no longer yours to endure. There is no bitterness in your heart, no desire for retribution, because nothing they do matters anymore. You exist beyond their reach, walking a path that was never meant for them to follow. And that, more than anything, is what they fear the most. From the very beginning, you were never walking this path alone. Every attempt to break your spirit was countered by unseen forces lifting you higher. Every whisper meant to shake your confidence was met with voices affirming your strength. There were hands, some visible, some unknown, steadying you when the weight of betrayal tried to pull you under. The connections that held you together stretched beyond what the eye could see, forming an unshakable force. Even in moments of solitude, you were protected, and that, more than anything, is what unsettled them. Not just your ability to stand firm, but the unwavering energy that surrounded you, refusing to let you fall. They counted on your isolation. They needed you to believe that when the truth surfaced, you'd be left without allies, abandoned in the wreckage they created. But deception cannot overpower the natural order of things. Those who were meant to remain by your side never wavered. They saw the distortions, the manipulations, the falsehoods woven into fragile realities. And now, as the tide turns, as balance is restored in ways they never expected, you are held, not by fear, not by resentment, but by an undeniable force that carries you forward. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. Their desperation intensifies with every step you take. They watch as the very alliances they relied on begin to unravel, as the people they once controlled slowly slip from their grasp. They underestimated the power of truth, the way it gathers strength the moment it is spoken. No longer contained, no longer dismissed, it spreads like wildfire, igniting realization after realization. The very murmurs they once controlled have grown beyond them, shaping conversations, shifting perspectives, shattering illusions. And no matter how desperately they try to contain it, their grip weakens. The very prayers they uttered for your downfall have been overpowered by a force they never saw coming, one that refuses to be silenced. This is what it means to walk in alignment. This is what it looks like when those who stand in integrity recognize one another and move as one. You were never just one voice. You were part of something far greater, a current too strong to be diverted, a force too vast to be subdued. This is the moment of transformation, the turning point where hesitation ceases to exist. No more questioning, no more making yourself small for the sake of others' comfort. The line has been drawn, and there is no going back. They will try. They will attempt to pull you back into old patterns, to cast doubt, to make you wonder if standing firm was the right choice. But their tactics no longer hold power. You do not retreat. You do not explain yourself to those who never sought understanding. And they feel it, the inevitability of what's coming, the weight of choices they can no longer escape. They believed control was theirs to keep, but control was only ever an illusion. Now the consequences unfold, indifferent to their resistance. The truth is here, and it will not be denied. Every attempt to reshape the past collapses under the weight of undeniable reality. Every lie dissolves in the presence of clarity. They expected you to cower in the face of this moment, to shrink away, but the roles have reversed. The reckoning they feared is not yours to carry. It is theirs.